preparation, so I'm feeling like this. So bear with me. I just got to know that on Saturday I'm supposed to speak on time, myth, and time in myth and symbols. So what Kiran has presented to you, which is like, so cutting edge, the mind space of an artist, I'm going to take you in a primordial time. So bear with me, because this might be something totally alien for you, or even maybe boring. If you feel that, you can just walk off. I'm keeping my presentation very, very brief, maybe half an hour or something like that. I'm not primarily showing my work, maybe just one work, because I'm trying to focus it on the symbols, the traditional symbols. So if you know it, you can sort of stop me anytime. Let me just give you a brief, maybe some of you know, most of you may not know. I'm Vidya Kamat, and I'm supposed to be trained as an artist, but I stopped practicing art because maybe somewhat like Ian, I didn't want to work. The reason I took a break and then I went into a study of myths, it was entirely an accident. And then I found out the reason why I should learn about myths is not because I was fascinated by the meaning and the symbols. I realized that somewhere my life is connected with something what has happened in ancient past. Probably I'm still carrying some of those residual informations within me. So I went to the academic in an academic way to study myths, just to understand what am I, why am I here, what am I doing. So it was a very, very personal quest. Now today's topic is on myth, memory, and symbols. To be very honest, a lot of people, we know what's time in Indian mythology. It means kala. Can you hear? You can't hear me?
This is fine.
This is fine, right? Okay. We all know, so I won't bore you with the mythology of kala, because all of us, we know kala, right? Kala means time. In ancient traditions, the time was subjected by Kala, which was presided by the deity Shiva. I'm not going to talk about Shiva because all of us know about Shiva. We know about Kala, Maha the dancer, how he creates the world and destroys the world. So I'm not getting into those aspects of mythology, because all of us, we have stumbled upon these concepts sometime or the other in our life. What I want to do is, I just want to take three concepts of three symbols, basically visual symbols, which represent time, and how they have been represented time in the ancient culture, architecture maybe. So the concept of time comes in mythology with the creation myth. Now any cosmology begins to understand how time was created, and I'm sure all of you are familiar with this image. It's a tantric image, and it is suggested that time was created by annihilating the first man. He was sacrificed, the first Purusha. In Rigveda, the first Purusha was sacrificed into various parts, and through the various parts, the whole universe was organized, and the time was constituted, or time came as a part of this organizational mythology. So it was the time in Indian mythology is connected with the ritual space. It is very closely related with the ritual space, and if you get into it, I won't go into the details because that would be like digging Vedas and Upanishads. So this is basically a diagram which shows that how the primeval man, the first man, the Purusha, was divided or sacrificed into various parts, and through his various parts, sun, moon, rivers, the three worlds, the patala, everything has been generated through the man. So the human figure, the human body becomes the source of the entire cosmos. And I think many of us are familiar with that part. This is just another image for you. Unfortunately, I couldn't go to the library, so I had to download. Now I'm coming with the three symbols. I'm just leaving apart that the reason why I said that how time or the kala was connected with the sacrifice. But also there is one particular concept of time which is there in the visual symbols, which is, can you identify this particular motif? Can you identify what it is? Can you recognize it? No? Sure? I'm sure you know it. I'm not talking so abstract. Can you identify this particular motif in the center, especially that head? You haven't seen it yet? Okay, let me tell you a story. Let me bore you with that. The myth says once upon a time there was a demon called Jalandhar. He was so powerful that he almost conquered all the worlds except for the Devas. He had already was the ruler of the Patala, then he conquered the earth, and then he came to the a region of the Devas, and the final thing was that he was not able to do that. So somebody told him that you can do it, you can crack this. Just go to Shiva and you can ask for his wife. If you conquer his wife, you have conquered the Devaloka. So he said, it's that simple, no problem. I'm the most powerful man on the earth. So he sends a messenger and he tells him, just tell Shiva, you hand over your wife to me, and here I am the ultimate king of the three worlds. So he sends the messenger, and the messenger comes with the request. Naturally, Shiva is not going to feel good about it, having to surrender his wife. So he becomes so angry that from his sweat he creates a creature. And he tells him, go and devour this guy. The messenger who is there in front of him. So he's there, he's out to devour the man who has come with the message. So the messenger says, wait a minute sir, wait a minute, I'm just a messenger. I'm not the one who's asking for your wife. I'm just carrying the message, so why you eat me? So Shiva says, yes, you have a point. Wait, you have a point. But by the time the demon who has been created, who's been asked to devour the messenger, says that, well, you've already given an order to eat, I have to eat. So what shall I eat? So he says, eat yourself. Let me just handle this guy, you go and eat yourself. So the demon starts eating himself, and he keeps on eating his legs and things like that, and only the head remains. Now, so Shiva is so pleased that, my God, this is a man who has taken my order to the letter, and now he cannot eat his own head, so only the head has left. So he is placed, he said, I'm so pleased with you that I'm going to place you on the door side. And he's called as the face of glory or the Kirtimukha. If you ever go into the temples, many of you don't go, I know that even I don't go, just watch out that this figure has to be there at the entrance of the doorway, between the first door and the entrance of the second door. See, here it comes again. Even in front of the idol. So this particular motif is always there. Now, why am I telling you this particular story? Please, if you see him, he's actually devouring the scene underneath. He's actually devouring the scene which is under him. And this is one of the gopurans. I'm sorry because these are all internet images, so they're very badly, they're so pixelated. So if you can see that his lower jaw is not visible, and he's actually devouring anyone and everyone who's entering that temple. So what is he supposed to remind us? Why is he devouring and why is he? The point is here that he's actually not devouring the scene, but he's devouring the person, you, who's entering the site. And the place where he is being placed is between the two worlds. Because you are entering from the outside to the inside, that is the temple side. So he's actually on the door frame, which is reminding you that I'm devouring you. So he actually represents time. He actually represents time which is being consumed moment by moment. So it's a very important motif in Indian architecture or myths or symbols or whatever you want to call it, because this is the symbol of time which is being. Now I'll just take you to the second portion. That's where we all know this myth of the Krishna where he ate that butter, and I'm not going into that again. The point which I'm trying to make here is again Krishna, when he was asked to open the mouth. There are two instances in the Krishna myth where he shows that he is devouring the world. One is the time where he showed his mother that the whole universe is inside him. And the second time when he tells the famous scene of Arjuna where he shows him that it's fine to, when Arjuna tells the whole Gita, and this is where the Virata Rupa, where Krishna is supposed to be showing him the full form of him devouring the world. So here you can see this is a peculiar image where some of the translations they say that they show the world, but some of the translations, the earlier ones, they say that actually what Arjuna saw, that it is okay to kill your kith and kin because everybody is dying and being reborn at the same time. That is what Krishna exactly explained it to him, that the time over here on the earth is just being consumed at every moment. So it is okay if the death, life and death is just a cycle. So this is again a motif of time which is being a symbol of the time which is being told. And the last motif, I'm sure everybody knows this. You're nodded, but you don't want to say it?
Ouroboros.
Yes. And Ouroboros is supposed to be sloughing or eating his own tail. Right? Is that the way you understand it? Ouroboros is a snake which is supposed to be devouring himself because this is something which I got it, so if you want you can read it, that it is not a mythical symbol, but it is actually a real thing where the snakes, they curl themselves and they actually slough away their own skin. So that way they rejuvenate ourselves. So this motif or the symbol of Ouroboros has come from Egypt. And this motif again you will find it in India because it is connected with Surya or sun. This motif has primarily come from Egypt because they find the snake and the sun having two similar properties or two symbolic meaning is that of regeneration. So it is always the sun in Egypt which is born every day morning from the mother Isis, and he goes down, he sinks down, then he's been swallowed by the snake and then he's reborn again. So the whole cycle of birth and rebirth and things like that is being sort of represented by this particular motif, and then you will see a lot of snake motif within our Indian mythology. Like you have a Shesha, which represent time. Am I boring you with this because because this is really ancient world which you may not like to deal with. So what I'm trying to say is that I'm just picking up three motifs. One, I can keep going on by extending these symbols to the moon, which wanes and waxes, how it represents time, to a tree which keeps growing in a spiral. So these are all motifs of time. You want to ask a question? Please ask. Would you like to ask something? Because it looked like as if you have some question. So, what I'm trying to point out here is that, like, there is a common thread, if you have noticed it, that the time which was conceived in ancient texts was a time which was consumed, the time which can be consumed and it can be renewed. The time as a renewal thing. Now I come to my first point, which I said that how the time was the first creation on this earth. The creation was created by sacrificing a man. So if you look at it, the reason why I'm talking about why I chose to speak about this time is also because the relationship between this is Vasuki basically. This is this is the myth when they used the snake to churn the ocean, and from the ocean came a lot of things. Maybe you're not interested. Okay, so
there were three snakes, right? There was Vasuki, there was Halal. Halal was Vasuki's venom.
Yeah.
And they all had very interesting stories.
Yeah, in fact, if you are interested, maybe, but I thought it wouldn't be. There are different types of Nagas.
Yeah.
Actually, they're not called as snakes.
Yeah.
Snake is an English translation which doesn't fit to it. Because Nagas are the mythical, and they're connected and they're much more, that's why it's connected with Egypt without going into the detail, because it has come from the Egyptian beliefs or ideology into India, probably through the trade. We don't know. And they say that the Nagas and the Garuda, which are supposed to be the warring tribals, one became the Devas, one became the Naga. So these are not actually, if you get into the myths, it is not actually about the symbolism, but it is about the two opposing factors.
I see a very interesting remixing of it done in Nagaraj comics, where Nagaraj was the snake man.
Yeah.
His history has been constantly written every 5 years, anew. So there's a new Nagaraj, a new history, a new source code. And they actually reference this bit, and the Egyptian link to it quite interestingly, because there is an Egyptian snake called Sorangi, and she has a background too. So
and the thing is that because of the very simple thing which I can tell you about why Naga, because they occupy two worlds, because they can live in the waters. That's why we consider Nagas as living in the Patala, and they can be living on the earth. So that is the symbolism which goes with the Naga mythology, is that they actually occupy all the three worlds, and there is a Naga which is considered to be Rudra, which is supposed to be existing in the heaven. So the power, because Naga is again connected with the motif of the sun. So this is the whole Naga, why it is connected with the time. Why? Because it also occupies the three regions, rather to say, And I'll just wind it up with few of the things. I just pointed out those 2-3 motifs without going into details because this is mythology's unending stories. It can really put you to sleep. I think Kiran is already feeling a little sleepy.
Not.
Yeah. So I'm going to just come up with the 2 points and then I'll just show one of my work and I'll end this presentation. It says that why we need, in India especially, with the concern with the sacrifices or rather ritual. And one of the things which the scholars believe is there is something called, it's called as the Mahakala. Mahakala are actually comprising of the 2 times. One is the Anitya Kala, that is temporal time, and one is the Nitya Kala, that is the permanent time or the whatever thing. So within the reality is formed between this Anitya and Nitya Kala. So in order to break, and we are always, they believe that we are perpetually in the Anitya Kala. So in order to break from the Anitya Kala to reach out to the Nitya Kala, you do a sacrifice or you do a ritual so that you can go back to the primordial time or you reach out to the time in the beginning. So you need to stop the time. It is a way of stopping your current time. So one of the things which they say is the relation between the time and space. And this is where the ritual and your time comes. And there are many things which they say. One is the ritual creation and the dissolution of time, which is connected with the regular rituals like you bring Ganesha or a Durga, you bring it, you infuse life with it, and then after a particular time you go and do Visarjana. So it's a kind of a temporal time within which you create a drama. So you break the time, you break your regular time within this ritual. There is a dissolution of temporal order of time, that is like, you create fasts, you create some kind of regular breaking of things like, you take up some vows, you take up some kind of a religious trip or journey. The third one is the transformation of man to God, and this is the reason why I'm coming to, is also breaking of the Anitya Kala, is where a man can be transformed into a godhood for a temporary period. Now, I'm coming to this because this is my interest here. That is where there are 2 rituals, where one is connected with the women, where you're being worshipped as a Kumari, and I was worshipped as a Kumari as a small child, pre-pubertal girl. And then there's another ritual in Kerala where you take up an Ayappa journey. So throughout that Ayappa, that particular penance that you are doing it, you're considered an aspect of Ayappa. So, these are some of the time and space which you overlap from ordinary time to the more transcendental time, being a human being. So, I come to my work, these are now, so this is just a prelude, I'll just show you some of my work. I was worshipped as a Kumar as a child, and this happened before, when I was before 8 or 9 or 10, whatever it is. And there was a very kind of, a religious thing which was attached to it. I'm sure every Indian family knows what are rituals, so there is no need to elaborate on it. The point where I decided to look at this, because I wanted to look at the relationship between the time, the ritual, and my memory. I don't think I have actually experienced something. I was not, to be very honest, this is not the way I looked when they sort of worshipped me as a child goddess in the family. This is the imagination within which I have gone through that experience. So every time they would worship me, I would reconstruct the memory of that particular. For me, the time literally stopped, and I did believe that I must have been a goddess till it really wonderful fell apart. So the transformation between this time of being a goddess and being an ordinary human being, or rather being a woman, that's the first time I realized that I am a woman. I reconstructed this work purely through memory, it's a totally imaginary world which I have reconstructed from the various ideas of Kumari, especially in Nepal, because that's the way I felt, because in Nepal that tradition is still being continued, where Nepal is the only place where you have a living goddess. So this is, every time I would visit an image, it would change a certain context. I would rather feel good about it, I would add something, I would rather recreate. So I'm interested here in constructing a memory through imagination which is of a time which is not ordinary time for me. It may not be for somebody else. So these were the works for me. I was trying to understand how the ritual time, how one ritual when it is conducted, how the time, the notion of the time changes for a person. And this is, I not only used my experience but also used my sister's experience. This is a very personal picture of my sister where she was expecting her first child. And many of you may not be there, this may be a very specific to community, but when you are expecting the first child, you've been dressed or you've been told that you will get a boy, not as a girl, but you are expecting a boy. So you've been decorated and dressed in many ways to become a Krishna. This work was called as the making of Krishna. So that you will have, it's also our cultural way of association with the male child or obsession with the male child. So what I'm looking at it is many of these cultural inputs which are being given to us needs to be questioned, needs to be looked at, and what it does to your own human body. Because I was one of the person when I stopped becoming a goddess, it did affect me psychologically because I wanted to reject the whole feminine the drama, or rather say the discourse. I didn't want to become a woman because I felt that I have landed on a ground with a big heart. So the same thing happened with my sister was that she delivered a baby girl. So I was trying to map her own psychological time or space within which she had assumed a kind of the ritual space, or rather whatever the space which was given to her, that saying that no, you will have a child because you have gone through this ritual, a male child. So I'm looking at how a ritual space affects your mental space, or also your anitya space, because after all those spaces are good when it comes to all this Mahakala and Nityakala, but when it comes to the human beings, when it comes to your own social realities, it definitely has its own implication. And I do believe many times when I show these works, and a lot of people are very uneasy about it because they're very private issues. It is not social issues. It's a very, very private issue. And this is my last work to this thing. This is again an example because this is actually a body of work from my show which I did at Sharmi. It was 2005 work. And this is again an experience of my friend who had entirely understood the Saraswati through Ravi Varma's calendars. So for her, Saraswati cannot be separated from the soap factory which came along with it. So how her identifications of the gods, the imagery, the cultural input of the, so the time within, what I'm trying to point out here is the kind of time and the space within the cultural space that we've been living today. And this I'm not talking about Vedic time, I'm talking about maybe 10-20 years now. And probably if you look at it, even today, some of the rituals we are so fond of, we are not ready to give. So I'm just looking at it in a very critical fashion to see how, what is the relationship. I'm not trying to say this is good or bad, I'm just trying to build a relationship between our concepts of ancient time and our current lifestyle. Thank you. I hope I have. Any questions?
The demon which eats the Jalandhar, is that Jalandhar?
Yes.
We see these similar looking things in new buildings in South India. Is it the same one?
It's the same motive. The motive which I'm looking at it is Kirtimukha, not Jalandhar. Jalandhar was the demon who actually sent a messenger, and this demon was created. Now this is a myth. Now I don't want to make it into a class of mythology, but you must understand, myths are actually the stories which tell you how you should look at things. It is not something true. It is a fabricated reality by our some ancient seers or whatever it is. So it only gives you an infrastructure. It's a kind of a grid. So many times you stop realizing is that this is given to you, and you start believing that, oh, it is that way. So for us, the time is, we believe in circularity of the time. I didn't go into the lengthy details of the motive of how the circle and how swastika and how all those things have been evolved and how it can be reflected, because how we believe in the spiral time. Actually, if you look at it, the serpent, when he it becomes a circle, right? But when he sloughs up, he doesn't become the same serpent again. He becomes a different one because he has already shed off his skin. So it's actually about the circularity. The time is not a linear concept. So that's why if you look at the ancient ones, you'll see a lot of these circular motifs in terms of what you call those leaves and what you call. It's all about time being regenerated. It's constantly telling you about regeneration of time. That the impermanence and regeneration. That's it.
Actually, you're talking about myths and myth making stuff. Something said about Kirtimukha and the snake eating its tail. It sort of spoke to an idea that I've been thinking about. I'm one of the artists responding to Prayas's concept. And I found it very interesting about the idea of the self that devours the self to the head. But what if the self had two heads? Which one would eat which one? This complexity leads to a moment of temporary bliss. It's called Kirti Sukha. Yeah, so it was immensely enjoyable.
Yeah, there is in fact a character in Greek mythology called Janus. He's supposed to have two heads, which is, and he cannot look at it because it's always sort of, so I believe your answer would be, since he doesn't know that there is another head behind, he wouldn't know which one to eat which one. I'm just relating. But it's interesting. What I've just done is really top of the thing. But if you look at the symbols deeper inside, especially the consumption of time, what I got fascinated and which I thought I would talk is about how time is getting consumed and the need to remind you that you are being consumed every moment. It's actually reminding you that you are dying every moment. So that is something which fascinated me to speak about these three motifs.
So also the dying is important, which is what the Dashatar.
Yeah, absolutely. If you look at
something related.
Without death, there wouldn't have been meaning to life, right? So because there is a finite, death is the finality. So that's why all the things happens with the death in the front. So Kirtimukha is actually consuming not anybody else, but me and you who is entering that temple or whatever, or whatever you see. So that is the motive. So please see that motive next time when you enter. It is there. It has to be there. So any temple,
Just a point I have to add about time you was talking about. Hindu mythology actually talks about cyclic time. The Greek mythology and other mythologies, they are time linear.
Yes.
And it's because of you've already covered that part, but it's because of the belief in time, the way of time, how the time is, the nature of time, your belief of your attitude towards life changes. There is just one story, a small thing about Alexander coming to India, and he met a Buddhist or just a seer who was there, And the seer asked him, like, what do you want to do? Why are you here? He's like, I want to conquer the world. And he asked the same thing to the seer, like, what do you want to do? He's like, nothing. And both of them thought the other person was a fool. But what they did not understand was the fact that they believe in the time, because Alexander came from a Western or a European mythology where time was linear, so there was an urgency of conquering everything before the final death.
Absolutely. So that's what I said, myths are given to us which we don't even realize, like what we believe, all our infrastructure, what we are, based on our myths which are being given to us. It will be given to you not in terms of story, it might be given to you but all those information is given to you in your childhood. So what you call yourself Indian is you have to question what myths you have subscribed to. So that's exactly, even the argument was that Oriental, the word Oriental is not politically correct, but so that the Eastern civilizations are regressive because our concept of time is circular or spiral, whereas the Western civilizations are more progressive because their concept of time is more. But these issues have been already very sort of.
And there's a new completed now science which talks about time as just a movement in entropy.
Yeah.
So it's I think understanding time in different aspects can make you understand time a lot better.
Yeah, sure. It's a huge. That's why I said a topic like this you can write thesis. You have to write thesis. So I hope I was able to give you a little bit of something different. So that's it. So Metro, your live thing is over.
That's done.
Considering the time, because when you work, are you conscious about the time that you are mapping those events or a kind of fictitious or mental constructs that you are building up within the video?
No.
No, it's a very... No, I just asked. I hope that it